The 5 tips that I'm covering in this video will act as pieces in your toolkit that you can draw on. Maybe you choose to draw on 3 of them, maybe you draw on all 5. Regardless, we're going to have time cards below so that you can bounce around between different sections of the video, but I would really recommend that you watch the whole thing from start to finish. They will flow in sort of a chronological order. Let's jump in and talk science tips for the early game in Humankind, arguably where it's most difficult to earn and where it matters the most. Within the Neolithic era, there are really 3 points that I want to mention. Firstly, of course, you're looking to hunt down these discoveries, the scientific ones. When you discover them on normal speed, you'll receive somewhere between 1 and 3 science, and also some influence as well. Ideally, of course, we'd be getting 3 science from every single one, but it's important to note that on average, you're only going to be getting 2, and we'd like to, if at all possible, complete this knowledge star. Here's another discovery, another curiosity for me. This one netted 3 science, so we are nearly there. We're completing this, of course, because the event that follows it is so important. Do not skip this vital step unless you really have to. And I rolled another 3, which leaves me with just 2 more science to go so that I can get my 10 out of 10 science. While you don't get any science from hunting animals, it can be worth hunting down a mammoth or 2 if you outnumber it to get the extra food and population that that will bring. And here we go. On average, I did not do it. I need 1 more science. With my knowledge star complete, there are of course 2 things left to do. Firstly, a tribe's legacy, and this is really the key takeaway from this tip. Make sure that you choose storytellers, plus 1 science per population on cities and outposts for the rest of the game. Because of the way that the rest of these scale, i.e. plus 1 food per pop or plus 1 industry per pop, and the wastage that can occur particularly for food, it makes incredible sense to choose storytellers in basically every situation, but especially if you want that sweet early game science. The other thing ideally that we'd have done is 2 territories placed before we move through, using the influence we already have, and I would add a little preference here towards territories that provide us with a lot of resources. Of course, things like silk and salt, perhaps a resource like silver to directly boost science on a city could be useful, but also make sure that you really pay attention to the early game strategic resources. For reasons that will become clear soon, this includes of course copper and horses. My second tip is around selecting your culture. Regular players to Humankind will know that there are a few particularly strong cultures in the early game. The Egyptians in the ancient era, for example, are standout, really fantastic. Also a lot of strength in the Harappans still to this day, and the Mycenaeans as well. Great pick. Loads of great ones, actually. I'm going to tell you about the best ones for science gain. The most obvious choice to you might be the Babylonians here. Unfortunately for me, and maybe for you, the AI have already taken them. They provide a good scientific trait, plus 2 science per research tech on capital for the rest of the game, and an astronomy house that is not too much better than a normal farmer's quarter, except for, of course, the fact that it gives you that sweet scientific adjacency bonus, and plus 1 science on researchers in your city, as well as an additional slot for them. This thing is a pretty good district. However, if you want to really accelerate your early game science, you should definitely, I would recommend playing as Joe. Their trait, plus 2 stability on district, will allow you to build more districts down the line, or at least enable you to forget about stability a bit, but really their power here, of course, comes from the Confucian school. Plus 5 science per adjacent mountain. If you have no mountains, do not choose them. If you do, though, they're a no-brainer, a truly fantastic scientific culture hidden under the aesthetic guise. You miss out on the scientific ability, but it's not the end of the world in the ancient era. To keep this video free of anything too overpowered, I'm going to try and play just sort of a generic bog standard culture that doesn't give me any real benefits in any particular resource yield. That's right, I'm talking about, of course, the Olmecs. Now, I've decided that early build order will be the next thing that I'm thinking about. What to build first, what to connect to my cities. In general, it's a good idea, of course, to connect your significant district, the emblematic district that makes you stand out. The Olmec Head, a great choice. The only other thing that will be limiting your early build order, much like it'll be limiting you for the rest of the game, hence the purpose of this video of course, is what technology you have unlocked and what you're researching at the minute. The key, really powerful early ones for fast science are going to be the Artisan's Quarter. This, of course, will allow us to extract luxury resources that we built it on. We're also going to look to domestication to extract horses, a strategic resource, and, of course, down here, bronze working copper as well. Other little ones that can be useful to have include fishing to provide a whole load of food into your cities with the harbour, and then, of course, writing for the slightly cheaper civics, and the first scientific infrastructure upgrade, the House of Scribes. The next thing I would recommend to speed up your early game build order would be to use your population to your advantage, particularly if you have scouts that you're disinterested in using. Let's get rid of them. In this case, because San Lorenzo is struggling to grow, I'm going to get rid of all 3 by bringing them within my city boundaries and hitting this disband units button over here on the right hand side. I can directly convert them into population in the city. You can see them up here, and now I can assign them on different jobs. More on this in a little bit, but for the time being I of course need to make sure that they have enough food to feed themselves and a little bit of industry so that I can complete my first couple of builds with ease. Once you have your base early technologies unlocked, you'll have the final really early game pieces in your toolkit complete. You'll be able to head into your outposts like this and improve your crucially strategic resources. I'm going to do so by spending 21 influence to connect these horses, for example, that I've now connected to my empire. San Lorenzo might also like to focus in on improving that copper when it can. The other thing that I always recommend once you've got your strategics connected is to finish the infrastructures that follow them. Animal barns, for example, will provide +5 food to all cities where you've built it, per horses. So if you've traded to connect even more, you will be even more full at the end of the day eating horse sandwiches. It also improves your farmers' quarters, just as the corresponding improvement for industry does so by interacting with copper in the exact same way. Get those done and your early build order basics have been completed. Any populations left standing around that aren't on the hunt for further discoveries could also be used to chop down trees within your borders. Don't forget to send a surge of industry into your cities to complete those districts or infrastructures that little bit quicker. The next big thing to think about is early cities and citizen management. On early cities, I think it's really important that you prioritize getting particularly your second city online very quickly. I've saved up 160 influence, that's the cost of evolving an outpost into a city, and in this game, because I'm really focused on science, I'm going to ignore, just temporarily, building improvements on these resources like silk, which give me +2 industry per silk on existing Maker's Quarter. A nice benefit down the line, but not an immediately useful one to my industry or my science. Whereas if you have a look within my cities themselves, have a look in San Lorenzo here, without any scientists at all, I'm getting 10 science per turn. So let's turn this outpost into a city. It's now producing me with 4, and as its population increases, that will only scale further still. Empire-wide now, I'm getting closer to 20 science a turn, and you'll see that reflected in how many turns it's taking me to research bronze working. Of course, don't forget I can apply the same tricks as last time, like sending units here and deleting them or disbanding them to have extra population in the city for more jobs, but I always do sort of revert back to the fact that it's a good idea to get those base infrastructures in place first, like animal barns, like pottery workshop, and also, in this case, the Olmec head, before doing anything else. The other important thing to think about is what you are actually doing with the citizens themselves within the city. If you'd like to change the overarching direction of your policy from a balanced one to, say, one that favours gold and science before food and industry, you can do so by changing it here. If you put it onto expert policy, you'll have complete control, of course. Now, The most simple way to think about this is just to slam science at the start and see the difference it makes. Or, in other words, drag your people from the jobs they're already doing, like providing you with food, across to industry and then across to science. Here you can see that in this very new city, one citizen, one job is worth an additional 6 science per turn. A couple of quick ways to utilize this could be to stop spending 4 turns chopping down forests and instead delete your leftover scouts, again disbanding them within my city. Now I have 1 extra person that I didn't have before, right? That scout was standing there doing not a lot, maybe chopping a forest, maybe just re-exploring territory. I already know what it looks like. Instead, I'm going to disband them and put them in as scientists. But actually, I would almost encourage you to take that a step further. Determine which one of these you have enough of, industry or food. In this case, it doesn't really look like I have quite enough food, but I do have a reasonable amount of industry, particularly if I were to focus next on building another Maker's Quarter that would further buff my base industry levels, and I could then afford to redistribute people across to science. The impact this can have is massive. We'll play out one scenario in a minute. The final piece of the puzzle, and believe it or not, this is a pretty important one, is religion. Religion, particularly powerful in the early game, fueled of course by faith. The in-game mechanic fueled itself by followers. That is, the number of population that live within a territory that follow the religion. Okay, that is fundamentally what you need to boost your religion, and the first tier, of course, of the Tenet system is unlocked at 25 total followers. I've just reached that. Let me show you why it's important. It's largely this one here, Seek Wisdom, plus 5 science on strategic resource deposits that take those already good copper and horse deposits that are already providing you, probably with around plus 2 science if you have them improved, up to plus 7s. Boom. An instant, immediate upgrade. You can of course also choose to take a massive boost to your industry, just to the left of it here, and try and build up your scientific research quarters at this point as well. Another totally viable option is respect the seas bounties if you're having more of a coastal game too. All 3 of these will eventually lead to strengthened science, so too could be said of course for reject luxury, but if you want the immediate benefit of fast science to get technologies or units or buildings before anybody else, go for Seek Wisdom, and then carry that same mindset through. Bear not fault witness, plus 5 science on research quarters, boom, an instant powerful buff. Next in tier 3, generally pretty garbage here, but then as you move through to tier 4 as well, you can get a nice buff at plus 50 science on your cultural wonders. Now let's play it all out. Let's bring it all together into a real example. I'm going to start by grabbing Seek Wisdom. That will immediately be applied. Of course, in my territories, you can see here, they are following my religion and contributing, crucially, a number of followers to it. In fact, all of the followers to it. Now, let's find a technology that I'd like to research. I can see that I'm 1 turn away from completing Wheel. What I'll also do, of course, is turn to Civics, something I haven't covered or really focused on. One of a few areas that will start to be more important as you move through into the later game. A reminder, the focus of this video really was for that early period around the Neolithic into the Ancient era, but just as a friendly word to the wise, do pay attention to your civic unlocks as well, including of course the ever powerful foreign innovations. If you're engaging in as much trade as you should be, this one will be very powerful too, because it pushes you towards the social axis for plus 10% science on cities and outposts. Okay, so I've entered a new turn. Let's play this example through. Let's find a technology that I would like to research, maybe one of the more expensive ones. Trade expeditions, super important for getting across the ocean. Philosophy, of course, important for getting those research quarters online so that you can start to bolster up those. For the purpose of this video then, let's go for philosophy, also getting school buffing these research quarters too, as that crucial city cap as well. So let's do it. Philosophy. At the moment it's going to take me 4 turns, it's going to cost 338 science, already building on the buffed and improved strategic resources. You can see down here in on the map, this copper mine is providing 7 science. Let's also try and fill the science jobs in my cities. At the moment, this extra food is being completely wasted. Either way, I'm only getting +1 population in a turn, so why not take these people off food? 2 of them are gone, and no impact was had. I'll steal someone from industry, shifting those numbers over here, providing me with some extra science. Let's also head over here to my other city, La Venta, and make sure that it is actually already, wham bam thank you ma'am, fully on board with science. If you wanted to really min-max the cause, you could, in theory, do something like this and fire a whole load of people out of your city to build something that provided more science, and then ensure that you have enough people just left to fill the science roles. You can see that's worked out fairly well here for future growth on this city. Either way, it's fully maxed out on science. I've picked up my religion, and now I'm getting this technology in 3 turns, getting 105 science per turn. It's powerful. It's a really short, quick, fast way to just really ensure that you get to technologies first. Why is that important? Well, ultimately that'll be up to your playstyle. Maybe you're rushing to trade expeditions to get out there and explore the world. Maybe it's a unique unit or a strategic resource that's got your name on it. Whatever it may be, it's very powerful. Then, as you move through the game, grab your scientist cultures that let you research an era later. Build on the considerably strong base you've already got and surge yourself into greatness, surge through the eras, reach out and grab really useful technologies like patronage here for the luxury manufacturing, and you will be away laughing. Thank you very much for watching today's Humankind video. I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you in the next one.